Very good evening to you and a warm welcome to The Globe, coming to you live from Johannesburg. I'm Cynthia Ngona. Thanks indeed for joining us. Now, this story leads: a pregnant woman and 14 children are among 32 killed in an attack on Friday in Cameroon's civil war-ridden English-speaking region. This, according to the United Nations Bureau Sub-Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the country. Several victims were allegedly burned to death. An unknown number of residents were injured and around 600 have fled from the village. Well, the region is beset by a decades-old conflict. The Ambazonian Governing Council in the English-speaking regions of the country say they want Cameroon to leave their territory, Ambazonia. They argue Cameroon annexed the region at the end of World War II. Almost 8,000 people from here have fled to Nigeria's eastern and southern states of Taraba and across rivers over the past fortnight. They want an independent mediator and have called on the United Nations to get involved. The insurgency has forced 500,000 people to flee their homes. Well, this has certainly presented President Paul Biya with his biggest challenge since he took power nearly 40 years ago. Dr. Cho Ayaba is the president of the Ambazonia Governing Council. He joins us now via Skype. Dr. Cho, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, take us through what really happened here.
Thank you for having me. It was a very sad event, but be reminded that just from January up till now, there have been 4 massacres leading to the death of about 150 persons. But Ngarbuh was particularly gruesome because of the death of close to 15 children and a pregnant lady, including the passing away of the fetus. What we know, based on the investigation of our Department of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs, is that more than 50 armed soldiers of Cameroon, including militias that it had armed, moved into the village of Ngarbuh and indiscriminately attacked a civilian population. We also understand that some civilians moved out of their homes in an attempt to escape the onslaught. They were killed, and then their bodies moved back into the houses and the homes were set ablaze. Evidence from blood that was spilled along their pathway shows that they were dragged on the ground and moved back into their homes and burnt. So it's particularly gruesome and very painful for the Ambazonian people, because it has become a repeated occurrence that Cameroon soldiers can simply move into villages, murder civilians, and walk away with such crimes.
What do you know so far in terms of the death toll?
We know 35 persons have died. I know the United Nations Humanitarian Affairs has posted 34, but what we are aware, there are 35 persons who are confirmed dead, including 14 children.
Well, we do understand that there was a separatist insurgency that erupted in the minority English-speaking region against the French-speaking government. Is that what the whole conflict is all about?
We are not a minority. As I said in my last interview, we are the first democracy in the continent of Africa. We have been a state that was occupied by Cameroon since 1961. And what we are struggling to do is to decolonize our country from a black-on-black colonialism that was sanctioned by the United Nations and the United Kingdom. So we are a separate state from Cameroon, fighting against terror and brutal occupation, violating international law.
Yeah, but is the issue really against the Francophone and the Anglophone regions, though?
No. It is. I know it's very simplistic to situate it as a linguistic issue because of the two colonial powers that had mandates and trusteeship duties over Cameroon and Ambazonia. It's a nationalist issue. It's an issue of one country that gained independence in 1960, violating the borders of Ambazonia and installing itself within our own country using excessive force. So it's colonialism. It's not an issue between the people of Amazonia and the people of Cameroon. It's neither an issue between Francophones and Anglophones. It's an issue between Cameroon as a state and Amazonia as a state.
Well, details are a bit sketchy at this point, but what we do know at this point is that 40 armed men and members of the security and defense forces came and attacked the village. What's the government saying about this? And is there any group that has so far taken responsibility?
Cameroon is responsible for the killings of these 35 persons. There is no iota of doubt about it. I think the defense minister has also accepted that responsibility, but in a partial way. The culpability is on Cameroon as the occupying power. We have enough evidence to show that Cameroon forces were responsible. Interviews have been conducted with eyewitnesses who exactly observed what happened. And this is not the first time. There have been 4 massacres in the year 2020 alone, resulting to the death of 150 persons. So for the United Nations asking Cameroon as the culpable party to investigate itself is laughable. And what we seek is the International Criminal Court to hold Cameroon responsible for the genocide that it has been committing within Amazonia in the past 3 years.
What then gives you the confidence that the government is really behind this? Do you have any facts?
We have facts. I'm speaking based on facts that have been reported by my Department of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs, eyewitness reports. We have gotten persons who have reported from the ground, and Cameroon's minister has also sent out a statement accepting partial responsibility. I think the United Nations report is also pointing responsibility on Cameroon. So the facts are not disputed in terms of the numbers killed, in terms of the culpable party.
Let's talk about the leader of Cameroon's separatist movement, Sisiku Ayub Tabe, and none of his followers have been given life sentences by a Cameroonian court. Does their arrest have to do with the brewing crisis in Cameroon?
Yes, Sisiku Ayub Tabe is a leader of the IG, and he and his comrades were kidnapped from Abuja and deported under brutal circumstances to Yaoundé and detained incommunicado for more than a year, and then hurriedly passed through a kangaroo trial and given life sentences. These are people who have stood up to challenge Cameroon's brutality over Amazonia, Cameroon's policies of annexation. And these are people who have fought within their own institutions as lecturers in Nigeria, and persons that are leading organizations against the practices of Cameroon in our homeland. And they have been detained in Yaoundé for more than 2 years now.
All right, Mr. Cho, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. That was Dr. Cho Ayaba. He's the president of the Amazonia Governing Council. He joined us via Skype.